All right, so today we are going to be doing a D.Va guide. This one's going to really focus on like some things you can work on with D.Va, especially in the tank matchup. If you end up liking this type of video, let me know. Something I wanted to talk today about was some things you can work on as D.Va, who your great matchups are, who your 50-50 matchups are, where it's like very cooldown based, you can play against those tanks, and what would be considered a bad matchup. First of all, just a couple of basic things to work on when you're playing D.Va. I call this like flight control. When you go up into the air, you know, make it so when you fly, you are knowing where you're going, essentially. One of the techniques I always tell people to work on is called the float technique. When you go up into the air, you hit your button again. For me, it's a different keybind, but it'll be like your left shift, whatever your D.Va boosters are. So like, yeah, you can work on things like flight technique, where you just use your float, where you hit that button to get your cooldown up quicker. Defense matrix management, rather than holding right click, right? Because a lot of people just hold right click like that. Prioritize burst damage over poke damage, right? An example of poke damage would be, you don't have to eat all this random spam damage that happens, but let's say that they window and they're doing a bunch of damage towards your team, you can DM all that burst damage, right? So defense matrix management is about making it feel like you always have DM, and by practicing that, it's finding times to when you drop your DM. So there's some things I suggest. So now we're gonna start with what I consider good matchups for D.Va. And what I also want to do here is tell you what to look for when you're playing against those tanks. Great matchups. Winston, Wrecking Ball, Rein. We're gonna start off with Winston. First thing you want to look for, did Winston use their leap? Okay? As a D.Va, the moment Winston does something like that, that's free damage. Your damage output on Winston is unbelievable. If you see a Winston, that is where you can do your damage. Obviously, Winston Bubble can complicate that damage output. So let's showcase here. So this is Winston Bubble. Can't shoot through it. So if Winston Bubble is used and Jump is used, you can do a bunch of damage to the Winston. Why do we have an honor right here? Because one of the things that I do a lot of the time when playing against a Winston is what I'm about to show you. They use their Bubble or their Jump, and I'm doing all this damage, right? They're gonna try to heal the honor. Now watch, I'm gonna DM like this, see? Now here's the heals. That is an honor grenade, but as you can see, I was eating all of the heals onto the Winston. So one thing you want to look for is the Jump, the Bubble. If you know both of those are down, that's a free limb for you for the most part. If they have an Ana, then you can just block the heals. And that gives your teammates time to follow up because you're going, well, I'm not doing any damage. Well, you can technically DM and rocket at the same time if you have them. But if all else fails, your teammates can follow up, and the Ana, for example, won't be able to catch up. Now, if Winston's getting healed by a Brig, by a Zen, a Mercy, you won't be able to stop those heals. It's going to be heroes like Ana, Bap, etc., where you can just kind of stop those heals. But keep in mind, the more they're not getting healed during that, eventually Ana's going to have to reload, and they can't really catch up on heals. So even if you don't get the limb, it's making it more difficult on the other team. That's why I love the matchup against Winston. Not to mention, if you ever need free ult charge, wait till Winston ults. The hitbox is huge, you get a bunch of ults. Okay. So now we're on to Wrecking Ball. Things to look for. When a Wrecking Ball is grappling, you can kind of disrupt that grapple. I'll show you here. So you can kind of boop them away, cause a little bit of issue, like you can displace a Wrecking Ball. Now, pretty much anybody who plays Wrecking Ball will tell you, whenever they get booped, it either goes extremely well, or a lot of the times, they get displaced, they end up in a different spot, their pile drives are off. And speaking of pile drives, another thing you want to look for is pile drives. So let me show you this very quickly here. When the ball pile drives, you can kind of displace their pile drive too. So as you can see, they wanted to land on the ground, but ended up landing up there because you can fly into their pile drive. So you're disrupting a lot of what makes Wrecking Ball good. Those are the things you want to look for. Their grapple usage, when they use their grapple, a great opportunity to do a bunch of burst damage. As you can see, that's rockets and holding left click. You're going to get Ball to half HP. Obviously, the more times that Wrecking Ball doesn't have HP, the more time Wrecking Ball is out of the fight. D.Va versus Wrecking Ball is a matchup I like. The Ball can still very much win. It's a little bit of a different matchup than like that Winston matchup I showed you, but I do like the matchup, and I think it's a good matchup for D.Va. Now we're going to go to the third tank. I do say I think Reinhardt can go into that 50-50 category. I'll explain why I like this matchup. First of all, things to look for with Reinhardt is one, what's their shield health at? So Rein's going to hold up the shield. This is the shield. Now watch one thing with shield health that the animation shows. So as you shoot the shield, which is going to take me a little bit more here, you see how you're starting to see the animation change a little bit? That's something you want to look for. What I usually do is I will do a set of rockets into a Rein shield, and then I'll start left clicking a lot, and then by the time my rockets are back up, you can now do a bunch of burst damage to Rein. Now, this is the same thing as before. So we have an Ana over here trying to heal the Rein. As you get Rein lower, you can now prevent heals from the Rein. But what that also does is it forces the Rein to put up their shield that was already broken to begin with. And it makes it so the Rein can't manage their shield as well. So to give you an idea, there's a certain cooldown timer on Rein's shield where it starts to regen. So the more often you're getting the Rein to put the shield up, the more likely you're going to get that Rein, or they can never get their shield back up, which obviously a Rein with no shield is not going to be ideal. Another thing that's really good in this matchup is this, right? The high ground, especially on maps with dominant high grounds, whether it's Nabani first point, second point, you know, Dorado, second point Eichenwald, right? The matchup gets even better because Reinhardt can't really do much against you, and you spend the whole time just doing this, right? And you can be even more You can do even more like that. So for example, one thing you want to look for, go ahead, Rein, Fire Strike. You can eat the Fire Strike. So you want to stop that and prevent Rein from getting that value. That is how you prevent Rein from getting a lot of early damage, a lot of plays. It requires the Rein to have to play more aggressive. So I love that matchup because of that. Now, I want to give you an example where this matchup doesn't become as favorable. Let's say you're on King's Row, right? Not as many flanks. You're more than likely to play against those close range comps that you can't just sit here and kind of, you know, face tank the Rein as much. And it's harder to go up on high ground. So it can be a little bit map dependent, but I really do like the matchup. I could put Rein either in the great matchup or the 50-50 category, which, speaking of that, the 50-50 category is coming up next, which is more of like, I find it to be somewhat of an even matchup, and it's more about playing around cooldowns. To name off some of the heroes here that I would consider a 50-50 matchup is Ramattra, Junker Queen, Mauga, Orisa, Roadhog, and believe it or not, D.Va. Ramattra. Why is Ramattra a 50-50 matchup for me? A lot of it is because you have to bait out certain cooldowns to be able to finish that elim against Ramattra. Let's say I start shooting Ramattra, right? And this is things to look for. Shoot Ramattra at Nemesis form now. You see Ramattra's HP? So now you have a tank that has a bunch of armor, already back to essentially 50% HP, and has damage reduction, right? At this point, I'm doing nothing to it. I'm going to show you an example of what to look for when Ramattra is in Nemesis form. So Ramattra goes into Nemesis form. You start shooting at Ramattra. They're just blocking, right? Look at the damage output when they're blocking. Now, they're going to start swinging at me. You see the difference in, like, your damage output at that point? So the things you're looking for is your damage output a lot of the time will be when Ramattra is blocking. Keep in mind, this is kind of in that 1v1 territory. If you have more teammates on them, you can kind of burst them down even with that block. So that's something you have to make a decision in game. But if you end up in a situation where you're 1v1 against Ramattra, that's what you want to look for. Another thing that I find can be a little bit underrated at times is Vortex. So one, you can eat Vortex. So I'll show Vortex being thrown. So if you know Vortex is coming, get ready for that. Another little side note, when Nemesis form, if you don't feel like you have the cooldowns to be able to deal with Nemesis form, one of the good parts about this matchup is you can just fly away. But that's also why I say it's really important to either look for the Vortex or understand where the Vortex is. So let's say that a Vortex lands behind me. So now I'm like, okay, I gotta get out of here. But now look, I'm slowed. I can't go up into the air for a little bit, right? That slow can be more than enough to get rid of your armor, to give them opportunity to follow up on the damage that's needed. That's why it's important in that matchup to look for the Vortex, but at the same time, also know where the Vortex went. Because if I know the Vortex is right here behind me, and I'm getting out of here, I can take a different turn, and that allows for me to kind of play around that. So those are things you want to look for in that Ramattra matchup. Also, one more thing with Ramattra, you can DM the Doritos, so if you really need to. I wouldn't recommend doing it all the time, but like, if they're trying to burst down your teammate, you can do that. To give you an idea, you don't want to DM the full duration like that, but it's good to look for those. So next, we have Junker Queen. A really aggressive Junker Queen comp, which sometimes can even be like a Brig Lucio comp or like the Kiriko Lucio comp, can make it a little bit difficult for D.Va. But there are things you can do against a Junker Queen in a lot of ranks that I think is beneficial. First of all, you don't want to play against Junker Queen like this, right? You're going to be a bit more mid-range. One, you can eat Junker Queen's knife. I'll show you this very quickly. So as you can see, you can prevent the knife from getting value. So make sure to look for that, right? Now, that's going to be a little bit more difficult. It's a very fast ability. If you do get knifed by Junker Queen, and you're like, okay, I'm going to back away, so I'm going to get knifed. And now I'm going to try to go, okay, I'm backing away. Now I'm going to try and fly away. Now watch how much you get pulled. You see what it does? Now, you could kind of manage the flight a little bit, but it kind of displaces you. Very much like I said with Wrecking Ball. So that's why it becomes a lot more 50-50. On top of that, I find that even though the rockets do a lot of damage, right? You can do really well against Queen. Queen has Shout, as we just witnessed, so you always want to look for Command and Shout. If Command and Shout is down, that is your opportunity. On top of that, if you get too close trying to finish off the elim, you also have Carnage, which is the Axe. So the Axe will also help heal the Queen. So at that point, it becomes more of like this 50-50, pay attention for Command and Shout, watch for Carnage. Keep in mind, I do want to point out, tracking Carnage can be tough sometimes, okay? If you don't get hit by Carnage, that's fine, but if 3 of your teammates get hit by Carnage, that goes from, I think, an 8-second cooldown to a 2-second cooldown, because for every target, it takes 2 seconds off the cooldown time. Sometimes you have to pay attention to that, and sometimes you can't track that. You might go, oh, they just use Carnage, I can play more aggressive. Yeah, but your 3 teammates just got hit by the Carnage, and guess what? Now you're getting Carnaged again, and that Queen's just gonna keep rolling from all the lifesteal. So just try to pay attention to the things I was mentioning, like the knife and Command and Shout, and you'll have a better matchup. Also, just like against Rein, you have the opportunity to play a little bit above high grounds and, you know, kind of play around the map. Don't face tank unless you have to. Like, for example, if a Junker Queen decides to Command and Shout and run into your backline, then you might have to face tank and try to absorb and prevent the Queen from doing that. All right, so now we have Mauga. This is more of like play your distance if you need to. Mauga's hitbox allows you to get a lot of damage output in, right? Obviously, the closer you are with your aim, your shots the better. So if I'm all the way back here, more than likely I won't be doing as much damage as you can See, that is also something I actually should have brought up at the beginning is like, remember, when you're more mid-range, like this 11 meters, 15 meters, you're going to see more value out of your shots, and it's a lot easier to hit other shots. So try to find that like good mid-range. All right, so one thing you want to watch for is Mauga's charge, for example. It can displace you a little bit. I'll show you here in a second. Also, look at the damage output I'm doing. I'm doing like no damage because there's a damage reduction during that. So just be wary of that. Most of the time you can fly away from it, but that's something you want to watch for. When that cooldown's down, that leaves Mauga in a very good spot for you to have follow-up damage. The next thing, and this is probably the most important part, is the cardiac overdrive. And what this ability does is gives Mauga lifesteal. But the animation is really obvious, so this is where you want to do the most of your defense matrix in. You can still DM the Mauga, but look for this. And so here's the animation. And this is where you want to try to absorb a lot of these like, the shots, right? Obviously, you can LOS if you can. But when Mauga is lit up like that, that is where you want to do the majority of the DMing. Why? Because there's going to be way less lifesteal after that. And of course, if you're in the ultimate, you can't fly around. So just don't get caught in the ultimate if you know they have it. I'll show you what happens in the ultimate. You've probably seen this by now, but this is what happens here in the ult. Ready? Can't escape it. Movement abilities are not working until this ultimate is done or until your teammates destroy this. So that is something you need to look out for. Now we're on to a hero that people love playing against, which is Orisa. I think the rotation of how you play against Orisa is pretty straightforward. So one, you're always looking for Fortify. I'll show you an example of Fortify. That's Fortify. If Orisa's gold, you're not doing much damage. You can't do anything. But when Orisa doesn't have Fortify, that's where you really do your damage output. But then you have to watch out for Javelin Spin. So watch what happens if I'm close to Orisa and I'm doing... See, I'm getting booped back, and I'm doing no damage. So in this type of matchup, you want to watch for the Fortify, and then you also want to watch for the Javelin Spin. And if you can kind of time it perfectly, you'll have like this 2 to 3 second window where you can burst damage Orisa down really quickly. That's pretty much the matchup against Orisa. It's very, very, very cooldown based. Another thing too, you can eat the Javelin. Now, the reason why you don't want to get Javelined and why you want to eat that is because of this. Right? So let's say that I'm using my flight during that time, and then I get Javelined. It stops you. You lose the flight cooldown, and now you're kind of stuck in the middle. What you never want to do as D.Va is kind of be caught in the middle with no cooldowns. Because then you're forced to use all your DM. They can be aggressive. They can push in. So just look for that in that matchup. So now we have Roadhog. So what you want to look for with a Roadhog, one, has Roadhog used hook? That's the first one, right? That's just number one. Why you want to look for things like that is because if you're flying around like this, if you get hooked, not only are you losing your flight cooldown, you're now next to the Roadhog, and more than likely you're gonna get shredded. Like, you're gonna lose your mech. Number two, what I'll do sometimes is if I know that they're like looking for like my Ana or looking for something in the team, I will stay in front of them to get hooked. This is kind of an obvious one, but the amount of times that like you'll see people fly away from their teammates and their teammate gets hooked, sometimes you have to get hooked just to prevent that hook from getting value. So that's something that I would highly recommend. It doesn't mean always get hooked, right? It's when you need to get hooked to save your teammate. Another thing to look for now is when Roadhog heals. So when Roadhog heals is damage reduction, right? But right now, the way it works is Roadhog has a 1.5 second window. So let's say that you see Roadhog heal. This is a great timing to maybe use your rockets. And then they're going to try to heal, but then they're going to start running out of heals and be put in that 1.5 second cooldown, which has recently changed. So when you're going up against a Hog as D.Va, you want to do that. Watch for Roadhog. If you can't save your teammates from a hook and they're not looking at you, just be ready to DM it. Hook them, DM. And actually, I said last but not least, I have one more thing. Your defense matrix will not be able to eat the whole 69-second ultimate that Roadhog has right now. What I will do against Roadhog is I will try to time my DM. So let's say that I'm this close to Hog, and Hog decides just to shoot at me here, and I have room behind me. Watch what I'll do. So I'm going to wait to DM. Now I can DM a little bit further, and then I can use the momentum they're giving me to go to a safer spot. I didn't have to DM it because it's going to benefit me. So as D.Va, a lot of the time you want to kind of time your DM during that ultimate. All right, so this is as 50-50 as it gets. Well, because it's a mirror matchup. What to look for? One, D.Va's rockets. You can DM those. You can also see the animation up here if you need to kind of time it with how your DM goes. Number two, watch the D.Va's defense matrix. So let's watch the D.Va here. If you see them using it a while, this is your time to now use the rockets, right? So that's pretty much the 1v1 with D.Va. Some D.Vas like to play aggressive. Some D.Vas like to play kind of in between. Let's say D.Va's flying up to the Ana, right? I can also trail behind them, do damage to them as they're flying up there, and then also DM the damage, right? In D.Va 1v1 matchups, if you can kind of understand the play style of the D.Va you're playing against, that can kind of dictate how you can play, as 50-50 as it gets. All right, so now we are on to what I consider bad matchups for D.Va. So the first one I have is Sigma. Now, why is Sigma a tough matchup? One is a shield. You have to get to the shield. Now you say, well, why don't you fly into him? Well, guess what? You can't eat the Sigma's rocked. So let's say I want to be aggressive on the Sigma. Watch what happens. We get yup rocked, and now I can't do anything. What about your burst damage? Okay, let's go in. I'm going to do some burst damage to Sigma. Sigma's eating all my damage and now has more overshield. Basically, when Sigma absorbs damage, Sigma gets overshield. So what can I do against a Sigma? Well, I'll tell you the things to look for. 1, shield HP. Shield HP is low. That's good. This is going to be good for your D.Va ults, but obviously you want to do the same thing as you did with Rein. Okay. Number 2, did Sigma use Eat? So watch, Sigma uses Eat right now. I'm like, okay, and wait a second, stop shooting. This is your timing, right? Good amount of damage. Obviously, I stopped left clicking there. You can do more damage than that. So you're looking for that. That's one of the first things you're looking for. Did they use Rock or not? So I'll show you a Yep Rock. If they've used Rock, this is another opportunity for you to force out a cooldown. So you could fly into them if you wanted to, force them to use Eat now because they've used Rock, and you've kind of rotated their cooldowns, making them a little bit less effective and not using that spam damage. Number 3, a lot of Sigmas will keep their shield when they ult. So now Sigma's going to ult in the air. Immediately when you see this, you can ult. A lot of Sigmas won't have their shield in a good spot, and you'll get the Ana. But more than likely, you'll get the Sigma is kind of the point I'm trying to make there. The things you can look for, it's just a difficult matchup. You're going to take a lot of damage. You're not going to be able to play the way you want to play. And a lot of maps that you're seeing Sigma be played on is probably some of D.Va's worst maps. An example would be Circuit Royale, Junkertown, Havana. All maps that D.Va can struggle on if there's a Sigma. And Double Sniper, all that. So there you go. That's Sigma. So now we're on to Zarya, which I think most people will agree or at least mention that probably the toughest matchup for D.Va. Why is that? Defense Matrix is a big part of D.Va's kit, but Zarya's kit is a beam, which you can't eat that damage. If you watch, I'm trying to DM the damage. I'm not doing anything. Now imagine the way it works with Zarya. The more charge Zarya has, the more damage Zarya does. And if you're asking the question, well, you know what? How does Zarya get charged? Well, from bubbles. So if you watch right here, do you see how the Zarya starts to light up a little bit more? This means the Zarya is charged. This is a good way to know if a Zarya is fully charged or not charged. So, how do you play against a Zarya if you're on D.Va? Let's say that you do want to play against a Zarya. The things that I look for. 1, count the bubbles. So let's say that I see a Zarya use a bubble right there and then on the Ana behind. I now know I have a timing on Zarya, right? Where I can do a bunch of damage to Zarya. So when you play against a Zarya who's playing Zarya efficiently, a lot of the time what you run into is that it feels like they have 3 bubbles, even though there's 2. So a lot of Zaryas will kind of time their bubbles out. The first bubble will pop, right? You know, you might do a little bit of charge, not enough. Okay, now they wait. They start doing damage to you, right? So now I'm like, oh no. Okay, then they bubble again, right? I'm like, okay, we're good. They use both bubbles, and then you start shooting them, you're ready to go, and then they bubble again. After that bubble there, this is your timing, right? This is the time where you're gonna go on that Zarya, and you're gonna do the damage, right? You have to count bubbles. One thing I always ask my teammates, let me know if you see them use bubbles, because if Zarya has no bubbles, this is a really good opportunity as D.Va for you to get the Olymp. And a lot of what you're doing against Zarya at that point is playing around those bubbles. Another thing you wanna do, you don't wanna play against Zarya like you're playing Zarya, right? You wanna do more things like this. So like, be up here. Make it so like, you know, Zarya has the bubble now, but I don't have to shoot him now because I'm hiding. They can't do damage to me. Do it again, like, right, like I'm hiding. They're gonna lose value, they're gonna go for your backline. They've used 2 bubbles, now you come in. You're able to do that. They go for a grab, you're behind them. You can like, watch, if they grab that way and I'm DMing behind them, watch what happens. You eat their grab, right? So you don't wanna play in front of the Zarya. You wanna play behind them, to their side. You wanna be kind of a nuisance so they know you're there, but if you find yourself in a matchup where you're going up against a Zarya and you need to make a play, that is what you wanna do. It's a very tough matchup, but sometimes you will find yourself in this matchup, especially in Overwatch, where you find a lot of that like counter swapping happening, especially at the tank roll. Little side note, one other thing that sometimes can happen with eat and grabs is you can kind of bait out, you can kind of DM, drop your DM for a second and then go right away. There's also one more that what you can do is basically you just kind of go up to Zarya, you start turning around when you know they have grab, you just turn around as quick as you can, holding your DM. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, but you know what? It looks really cool. Last but not least on this one, you can eat Zarya's right click. Zarya's right click is generally what Zarya will do into a grab. So let's say that you do get grabbed, right? You can DM the right clicks where Zaryas do that. So Zaryas are going to have to, at that point, go to each individual target, and that could maybe keep your teammates alive. All right, so this is one where you could probably put Doomfist in the 50-50 matchup if you wanted to, but if you play against a Doomfist who's using their cooldowns correctly, you can struggle a little bit. So 1, see if Doom slams in. That's one of the first things you want to look for, right? If they go in there, then you can start doing some damage to them. But a lot of the times what I find is that Divas will start to put their rockets into the Doom. Even I do this sometimes. Dooms are then going to go block. So when Doom jumps in, you'll see the Doomfist use their block, right? Where people are already doing their rockets. Now, Doom gets so much more value with that punch And that's what you really want to look for against a Doom, is if they've used the block, if they've been empowered, or if they're not. So now, when the Doom has this empowered punch, watch, if you've ever wondered how to find out if they do, look at Doom's fist right now. Like, this is just, it's very obvious. You could argue that you're better off charging a Zarya than you are charging a Doomfist punch, because charge punch is so strong. I'll show you an example of, like, just, like, watch the value and the range of it. So now, I'm stunned for a little bit. Doom can displace me, and more than likely when I'm using, like, my flight there, Doom will be able to stop me. So it's one of those things where as long as you watch the block, you can do pretty well against Doom. As you play against really, really good Dooms, a lot of the time you just spend the time getting punched by a Doom. Like here, I'm gonna start flying and get punched by a Doom. Watch, I'm like going this way, I get punched, right? Then you try to rocket the Doom because you're stuck there. They block all your damage. Now they have a charge punch, and then you try to get out of there, and then they go right by you because they missed by a mile. Point being is that they more than likely will hit you there. I will say, when I talk about really good Doomfists here, you spend the whole game not being able to do much. Or when you try to make a play, a Doom comes in, slams your whole team, punches everybody because of the charge punch. So just try not to charge them. Look for when they slam in, and when they ult, when Doom ults, and then Doom lands, it will slow you in there, but on top of that, it gives Doomfist a charge punch. So, just watch for things like that. The matchup, like I said, is okay. I was very much in the, do I put Doom in the 50-50 matchup or a bad matchup? A lot of the time as D.Va, you're spending time trying to keep up with where the Doomfist is going than actually playing the game. And you can't peel a lot of the damage from Doom, right? See, you can DM that, but that's not even like the main part of what Doom's gonna do. Doom can slam you, they can punch you, and all of that damage, you can't eat. You just can't. That's it. Those are the matchups, the tank matchups, how they go, where I kind of put them, what to look for. I hope you enjoyed this video. Let me know if there's more things you would like to learn, like to see, if you want to see me do this from other tanks I play. I play a lot of other tanks, right? Do you want to see a Sigma guide like this? Do you want to see a Junker Queen guide like this? Like, what are things you would like to see? Was this informative to you? And let me know. It helps me see what else I can do in these videos, what I can add to these videos, where I can go and add even more stuff, like good maps, bad maps, maps I don't like to play on, like a bunch of different stuff. So please let me know in the comments below. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't, and I hope you all have an amazing day/night.